But Rafe Harlemaker is here. Rafe, very good morning to you.
Very good morning.
I suppose we should start with Andrew and the state of the royal family, really, shouldn't we? Because you're a bit of a constitutional expert. Does this damage them, do you think, as a sort of an ongoing concern?
Well, for journalists, particularly tabloid journalists, Prince Andrew is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
But that's the problem. This is why you can understand the frustration, if not the despair, in the royal household. That every time they think they've finally closed the door of the Prince Andrew saga, a few months later it bursts open again, and it simply will not go away. And so now we've just had the publication today of the memoirs of Virginia Giuffre, the woman who killed herself and was raped by Prince Andrew. That's brought out even more details. We now have this story about him asking the police to look into her. People are now calling for an inquiry about that. How did he get her?
And the police, I think, have said, despite the fact that he's denied all of the accusations that she's made against him, the police supposedly now are investigating this claim that he tried to get the police to investigate her, if you know what I mean. It's complicated.
And there are questions as to how he obtained her social insurance number. How did he obtain her date of birth? Who was his contact there? So actually there are questions that continue to need to be answered. Now, it should be said, you happen to have with you the co-editor of Burke's Peerage World Orders of Knighthood.
There you go.
So I can speak authoritatively that he hasn't lost the Duke of York. He still is the Duke of York. He's still the Earl of Inverness and Barry. He's not using it. So the King still does have the ability not to remove his peerage title. That requires Parliament, but there are now MPs calling for that to happen. It could be done pretty quickly, actually. It needn't take up parliamentary time, but also he could be formally stripped of the Order of the Garter, which he hasn't been.
So all of these things. What is the Order of the Garter? Because I was asked this at the weekend, and I said, it's some kind of chivalry, kind of, heraldic kind of scenario. What is the Order of the Garter?
The Order of the Garter is our most senior order of chivalry. It dates back to the 1300s on King Edward III, and essentially it is an honour given in the personal gift of the sovereign, along with the Royal Victorian Order, of which Prince Andrew is a Knight Grand Cross.
It's nothing to do with that thing strippers wear that you put money in.
Well, they do wear it.
About that. I don't know how I know that.
Well, the motto of the Order of the Garter is "Honi soit mali pense," evil be on him who evil thinks, because at an event in the 1300s, the garter of the Countess of Salisbury fell off and everyone laughed, and so the King picked it up and said, "I will make this my premier order of chivalry."
I love these stories. Brilliant. So technically speaking, if you were to come across Prince Andrew at any point, he still calls himself Prince Andrew. That's still all right, but he won't be known as the Duke of York. Things he doesn't really ever go anywhere. He just drives around Windsor Great Park in his Land Rover, doesn't he?
Exactly. The days of Air Miles Andy have long gone. He's now putting Andy on his own green. I mean, the King could actually remove the title of Prince from him as well, and the King can do that himself through his patents. He doesn't need to go through Parliament. So there are other ways in which you could actually take further punishment against Andrew if these stories keep coming out. But I would hope at this stage, having been totally humiliated, that Andrew would follow the example of his great uncle, the Duke of Windsor, who went into exile in Paris.
That's what he should do.
And lived a life there.
He should go abroad, shouldn't he? He should go and live in the Falklands or something. Maybe that would be apposite, because he obviously, a lot of people say the only sort of saving grace of Andrew is that he did fight on behalf of his country, and he actually did properly get himself into quite sticky situations piloting a helicopter in the Falklands War.
Well, that's a very good comparison. I've often said, he was willing to lay down his life for Queen and country in the Falklands War. This requires a similar sacrifice for king and country, and for the interests of the monarchy, he needs to fade into the wilderness. We know that Sarah calls Switzerland her second home, but also people may not realise he has the use of a full palace in the UAE. The royal family of the United Arab Emirates have said there's a palace available for him whenever he wants it. So
Let him go there.
The snow-capped mountains of the Alps or the deserts of the UAE.
I think that's a good spot for him. Let's remind ourselves of what he said in 2019 about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I would day forward.
Yeah, that turns out to be a complete falsehood, obviously. Emily Maitlis, I watched at the weekend, was on Laura Kunsberg, and she said, we were all absolutely aghast when we discovered that there was an email, which we found out last week, he had sent to Jeffrey Epstein saying, we're in this together, some months after he talked about that walk in the park. And also, they were all aghast about the fact that he said, I decided to do the right thing, not take the chicken's way out. I went to see Jeffrey Epstein to tell him that I was going to no longer see him, but I took 4 days to do it. And I stayed in his house for 4 days, went to various parties with him, and went for that famous walk in the park.
Well, and even worse, of course, in that email, which came after he said that he had broken off contact, he said, we shall play again soon. I mean, absolutely appalling. Now it's come out today also that Epstein said that one of the first people to visit him when he left prison was Sarah Ferguson, who brought her 2 children, apparently, to see him.
Ah.
You know, obviously so beholden to a billionaire, looking for
Right.
a handout quite clearly. So, yeah, both of them actually have clearly lied and deceived the public.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons they need to pay a price.
Yeah.
We also understand today that one of the reasons the king acted so swiftly was because he's going to the Vatican for this very historic moment where he's going to pray side by side with the Pope, and he was fearful that this Prince Andrew saga would overshadow the visit, and that's one of the reasons such drastic action was taken. And even in the 11th hour, Prince Andrew still didn't want to give up those titles, and it was only when the king actually intervened personally with a phone call
Yes.
that Prince Andrew realised he still was living in a state of disbelief.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually think, you know, that he's being treated fairly.
Well, he's clearly one of these people who doesn't quite see himself as others see him, as it were. You know, there's that famous moment, I think, a couple of weeks ago, was, I think, with the funeral of the Duchess of Kent, was it? When Andrew and William found themselves standing next to one another, and you could see Andrew making some quip, and William literally could not have looked more filled with disdain as he sort of looked across at him and refused to kind of interact with him, because you can see that there's a great deal of sort of enmity between them.
But this is one of the issues. Even now that he's had all of these things happen to him, he still tries to make himself front and centre of any event that he attends.
Exactly.
So we now think we know he's not going to be there at Christmas, but we don't think we're ever going to see him again, even at private family functions, being banned from Sandringham, banned from Balmoral, banned from Windsor. Banned from Buckingham Palace to avoid scenes just like you're talking about. Now, look, it's absolutely true. Prince Andrew is innocent in the court of law because he's never been tried. So you're innocent until proven guilty. He hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. But when you're in the royal family, that doesn't matter because you've been found guilty in the court of public opinion.
Yes.
And that's what counts. It may be unfair in his eyes, but the monarchy comes first.
Indeed, and I suppose the next time we might see him in any kind of, you know, semi-official capacity, and you don't want to say this really out loud, but it will be the next time a big event happens, like, for example, I don't know, the funeral of his father, where they probably couldn't keep him away. But until then, that's about it, really, isn't it?
That's right, and there is talk about that Prince William, when he becomes king, may ban his uncle from the coronation.
Yeah.
You may
Which
remember...
would be quite a big deal, even constitutionally, wouldn't it?
Well, at the last coronation, there was no role for Prince Andrew. He was not part of the ceremony, yet he chose to arrive wearing his full Order of the Garter robes.
And there was a conversation to be had about that, wasn't there? Because people were saying he shouldn't do it. He should turn up just in mufti, as it were. Fascinating. I'm sorry we're not talking about Keir Starmer yet. We will, don't worry. Labour government is indeed still just as bad as it was on Friday, so fear not. We'll be talking about the number of Channel migrants coming since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, which is touching 60,000, by the way. And also we'll be talking about the number of crossings in September. Plus, Ed Miliband was out and about at the weekend talking about how he's going to create 400,000 jobs. We don't think he's going to do it. And Rachel Reeves as well, because getting ever closer to the November 26th day when she's going to give out her budget, which is going to do an awful lot of harm to an awful lot of people. This, of course, is Morning Glory. We've got talk. Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to just after 19 minutes past 6. It is, of course, Monday the 20th of October. Barry says, this morning, Mike, I revered the late Queen, but the royal family are in a mess. Their popularity is steadily declining, and they need to be careful. I would like to see them being more philanthropic and realising the shambles the country is in instead of being so out of touch, says Barry. And Tony says, Andrew and Harry will destroy the royal family, definitely. And I think there's a good point that Barry makes there, Rafe. It's all about, in a way, isn't it, the sort of image of the royal family, and most people look upon King Charles as relatively benevolent. He's not a particularly difficult guy to like, but he is a bit woke, as is William.
Yeah, but you know, the key thing is whether no one can deny that the king's heart is in the right place, whether you agree or disagree with what he's doing. We could have had a playboy prince living in or playing in Monaco at the casinos for all of the time. We could have had someone like Prince Andrew as our king. And I think whatever you think about his decisions on the environment or whatever else, this was a man who was ahead of his time on so many issues, very concerned about the homeless and about all sorts of issues to do with the countryside and so forth. But, you know, also you've got to remember, the monarchy is bigger than any one individual. The monarchy has been around for 1,000 years. We don't pick and choose our sovereigns. And so, you know, over the decades, you'll have people that you prefer and others that you don't. The institution is much bigger than any person. And I think we have the world's oldest and most stable democracy, in part because of the monarchy.
Indeed. Now, on Thursday's programme, at this time, it was suggested that Bridget Phillipson's mother was implicated in some kind of embezzlement scheme of a local charity. We can categorically say this is not true, and we're happy to set the record straight. Let's look at the front page of the Daily Express. Mayor accused over grooming gangs cover-up in capital, it says here. And apparently we know that Sadiq Khan in the past has been very evasive when he's been asked questions, particularly by Susan Hall, the Conservative leader of the Assembly, about whether or not there are any grooming gangs in London. In fact, she said at one point, isn't it surprising that with all of the grooming gangs and rape gangs up and down the country, in particularly in Labour-controlled, areas, how is it that there aren't any in London? And according to the Express, they think he's been involved in some kind of cover-up.
Yeah, I mean, this is another disgraceful thing. Look, London is so huge. London is bigger than Birmingham and Manchester, Rotherham, Oldham combined. One of the things I thought maybe is that there are not enough, young white girls left in London. That's one of the other issues here. And London's only 37% white British, so you're hard-pressed to find any white young people in parts in Tower Hamlets and the East End of London, for example, areas which are...
Now, I see they had a race in Tower Hamlets just the other week,
with no women.
With no women allowed. It was a race for everybody, a fun race for everybody over 12, as long as you're not a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, ridiculous.
But, the audacity of this mayor of London, absolutely disgusting, to gaslight the victims of the rape gangs when he was asked by Susan Hall about the grooming gangs, and he claimed not to even know what the term grooming gang was. And I don't know whether you're going to play the clip.
We have actually got the clip.
Let's watch it. It's an outrageous display of arrogance.
Yeah, it is. Have a look. This is Susan Hall.
I asked you this question last week, and you found every which way but not to answer it. Just how many grooming gangs have we got in London?
To avoid any misunderstanding, can she define what she means by that?
Yes. If you look at what's gone on in Rotherham, where there are people taking young girls, grooming them for sex, that is what I'm talking about.
We know in London there are issues about exploitation of young people, but they're not as defined by the member in her definition of what those types of gangs are.
So are you saying we haven't got the same sort of gangs that are in Rotherham, Bradford and lots of other places in the country?
Just for a misunderstanding, what does she mean by that?
You know full well what I mean by that. It's all over the television. You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
I'm unclear, Chair, what is meant by the question. If you could spell it out, I can answer.
I've just spelt it out. Are you not listening? It's the sort of gangs that groom young girls at a young age for sex. Exactly how much clearer do you want me to be?
He's basically trying to goad her into saying Pakistani grooming gangs or Asian grooming gangs in order to then accuse her of racism, right?
Yeah, and that's absolutely appalling to play those sorts of cheap political games when you're dealing with the lives of young people, And we now have, it's in today's Daily Express, 15-year-old girl went missing for 4 days.
Yeah.
Went to the police, said that she had been raped. 13-year-old exploited here. This was last year, 2024 report. 15-year-old given drugs, made to carry out sex acts in hotel rooms. So many of these cases which were on the desk of the Mayor of London.
Yes.
And there he is, claiming to be completely ignorant about what Susan Hall was saying there. Why didn't he answer those questions? Why did he deny the existence of these sorts of rape gangs? And also, let's remember, what's happened to this national inquiry?
Well,
we are months into when Keir Starmer basically conceded that you needed an inquiry. Nothing has happened. They can't even find a single person to chair the inquiry. No. Nobody wants to be tainted.
Apparently all the judges in the country are worried and squeamish about being involved with it. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
We don't even know the remit of the inquiry. We haven't even been told what the actual areas they're going to be looking into. One of the reasons is because, and remember, Sadiq Khan's also a member of the Labour Party, is the endemic corruption that goes hand in hand here, where the Labour Party in local councils, perhaps even in London, I don't know about London, but certainly if you look at the north of England, they deliberately turned a blind eye to all this. They said, don't vote for independent Muslim MPs because they can't look after your interests. We are the Labour Party. We will be the government. We will look after you. We'll turn a blind eye. Roger Mir, the great whistleblower, spoke about how gangs of Muslim community leaders with heavies would go door to door, knocking on doors, often with people who couldn't speak the language, and got their postal votes, and made them sign it. And these huge tranches of postal votes went to the Labour Party. That's why I think you're not seeing enough being done on these inquiries, because they don't want people to look underneath those stones and find out the slimy deals.
Very clearly they don't want that to happen. But I wonder if there's maybe a slight schism between Starmer and Khan now, because not yesterday, but last week, after Sadiq Khan said he didn't think that the chant from the river to the sea was anti-Semitic. When Keir Starmer was asked about it, he said, actually, no, I do think it's anti-Semitic. And when he was asked again does that mean you differ from Sadiq Khan? He more or less admitted that, yeah, we do. We have a different view of that. So maybe that's the beginning of something, perhaps, that will develop over the course of the next few weeks and months. Mayor's office, of course, say that the Mayor has always been clear that the safety of Londoners is his top priority, and nowhere is this truer than in safeguarding children. That's his official statement.
Well, you saw the video there, I would say.
We would, yeah, we might take a view of that at some point down the road. Let's have a look at what's been going on at the weekend, because Ed Miliband was doing the rounds, you'll be pleased to know, on television on Sunday morning. We haven't seen Ed Miliband for a while, and of course he's ratcheting himself up for the soon-to-be multi-billion-pound trip to Brazil for COP30, because the one thing you can be sure about what happens when every COP meeting is held, the one thing they do is they arrange for where the next one's going to be, because they still, despite 30 meetings over the course of the last several decades, they haven't managed to stop climate change, apparently. Here he is on taxation to cut energy bills.
What Rachel Fletcher said there was wholesale costs, even if they halve. Here's a really important point. The reason why going to clean energy is the way to get bills down for good is it's so much cheaper to run let me just make this point, the wholesale costs. But Rachel Fletcher is right. There's a cost to building that network. Now, my job is to make sure the fruits of those lower wholesale costs that she's talking about get through to the customers, and we bear down on the costs of building that network. And I've said to you very clearly in this interview, Victoria, that I know my job, which is to get bills down by 2030.
OK. Does it have to come off our energy bills? Could it not come from other elements of taxation?
Well, that's always a judgment for the Chancellor. But let's be honest, we know we've got really difficult fiscal circumstances that we inherited.
Okay.
And so, but absolutely, we look at those things.
This is in the midst of a whole series of arguments that he had about creating new jobs in green energy, and nobody really believes a word he says. He talks about saying getting our bills down by 2030. When they were in opposition, he said, when we get elected, you'll save £300 on your energy bill. That hasn't happened, has it?
No, bills have gone up.
Yeah.
It's just the absolute opposite. Yeah. He says that he knows what his job is. Well, I think he needs to go back and look at the brief for his job there. But he's absolutely deranged, He says the reason why bills are so high is because of our dependence on fossil fuels. Right. We've just discovered...
Also untrue.
We've just discovered 1 billion barrels of oil in the North Sea, right? And yet we're going down this crazy path. Andrew Neil had a great tweet out about it. He said, speaking about Ed Miliband, he said, this is deranged. Yeah. Despite tens of billions of pounds invested in renewables, there are only about 40,000 jobs. That means basically that each job has come at a cost of £200,000 each. This is a ridiculous scheme. There's a reason we have the world's highest electricity costs, and Ed Miliband is one of those reasons.
Yes, he is, because he was asked quite blatantly on the BBC by, not Laura Kunsberg, but the woman doing her show for what's the name? Derbyshire, Victoria Derbyshire, yeah. She actually said, yeah, but we've looked at a bill, right? And on that bill, there is a green levy, there's VAT, there's all manner of things that you've added on as the government in terms of add-ons to what the actual energy bill is. And you could, if you wanted to, get rid of all that if you want to make people's bills cheaper. And he said, oh, well, yes, but of course we can't just, willy-nilly get rid of all that because, we have to get a balance. And so he's disingenuous, completely disingenuous about exactly how, in fact, he runs the Department of Net Zero and Climate Change.
Well, and it's worse than that, the Chancellor wants to go for growth. If you want to go for growth, lower the cost of energy, get rid of these green levies, and British industry will be able to be competitive again. The SDP had a conference, and I saw one of the speeches there. They said that the amount of the cost of energy has been 3 trillion over the past however many years. That's the same size as our debt.
Yes.
And just think about how industries are now being hamstrung. They're being, having their hands tied behind their back, trying to compete against China and India. Right. They continue to build all of these sorts of things. And that, of course, reduces the corporate tax rate that could improve all of our public services.
Exactly. And instead what they do is and one of the things he boasted about was that, we've increased the number of people we're giving an extra sort of heating allowance to over the course of this Parliament. And you go, well, we don't want to subsidise people to pay very much higher bills than they should be paying. Just lower the bleeding bills and everybody's happy.
And the point is, we already are one of the world's cleanest countries when it comes to energy, right? said, other countries still have to play catch up with us. So let's just take a breather, let them catch up with us, and then we can revisit all of this.
Yeah.
We've done enough.
Exactly right. Ed Miliband, a complete and utter plonker. We're going to talk coming up about some migrant stories. We've got quite a few of them today. Also, we've got some great clips of Rachel Reeves. She's apparently been talking about how proud she is and what a good job she's been doing. Of course, it was with Channel 4, the only place where she could actually get an audience to listen to that kind of garbage. It's coming up to 6:31. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 6:34. Rafe Hardeman-Koo is here with us. We're going through the papers. We've got plenty of stories about migrants this morning, Rafe, as the numbers are starting to stack up. We've got the migrant tracker telling us at the moment that the number of Channel migrants coming here since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister on small boats practically up at 60,000, 59,971. And the numbers for 2025 only since January the 1st, 36,729. The Mail actually has it at 36,734 in, 42 out. Because they sent a few more people back to France. They don't even bother announcing it now, do they, when they send people back to France, because the numbers are so small.
Well, I love that on page 2 of the Telegraph, the headline is, record 16 migrants sent back home.
Yeah.
I mean, meanwhile, you have, 60 people coming over, 125 people coming over in single boats.
Yeah.
We've had 60,000 people arrive here by small boat over the course of the Labour government, and we've sent back 16 in one group flight, and the total number is 42. I mean, it's a complete nonsense. No one coming across the channel even knows people are being sent back. This is the point. That's the whole reason of a deterrent is for people to know about it and to be scared of it.
Exactly.
And neither of those two conditions are met.
But also, let's not forget that 42 who have gone back to France will have been replaced by another 42 coming the other way, who have actually got permission to stay already, even before they've got here. So it's not actually 42 out at all. It's 0 out in the end.
And what's so frustrating, what makes people so angry, of course, is that Labour has been looked at for 14 years at what the Tories have failed to do. They're now in government for so long, and they unveiled this as if it was their great secret weapon, when we all know that it's completely ridiculous. Right. And when this is the best thing that the government can do, it makes you despair that they actually haven't got a clue what's going on, the scale of the problem, or how to deal with it. We can only hope that they're swept out at the next election, and we finally get a government that is serious about tackling these issues.
Yes. Well, you would like to think so, but I mean, I'm afraid there's yet more fallout from the whole story of illegal migration. Story in The Sun, page 14. Asylum seekers at a migrant hotel have been jailed for attacks on a policeman and a doctor. Afghan Akmal Sifa, aged 23, ripped off a metal window blind and used it to assault a GP when he refused medication in September. Meanwhile, Sudanese national Khalid Mohammed, aged 22, kicked a police officer in the chest when he was arrested over a drunken disturbance in March. What the hell are these people doing here? So one of them's 22, one of them's 23, one of them's from Afghanistan, one of them's from Sudan, and there's literally just criminal scumbags. Why the hell are we letting them in?
Yeah, and nothing was said in court about deporting these two.
No.
This is what's ridiculous. We're still going to be keeping them at His Majesty's pleasure.
Yeah.
How much that's going to cost us all? Probably better than life back home as a British prison, I would have to say. So given the choice, they probably prefer to be in a prison. Why are we having these people here?
Yeah.
Kick them out.
And did you see that story at the weekend of the guy who was sentenced to 5 years in prison for threatening to kill Nigel Farage, the guy with the tattoo of an AK-47 on his face? It turns out, and the Mail did a great job, they went and tracked down a woman who he raped in Sweden. He was done for something like 17 different criminal convictions, including drugs, including larceny, including stealing, beating people up. He raped a woman, he moved in with her, assaulted her 15-year-old daughter. This guy had a litany of crimes behind him, and yet when he arrives at Dover, they all went, "Oh, in you come, mate. Yeah, no problem at all. Don't worry about that tattoo on your face. You can come and have a lovely life here in Britain." And sure enough, he's now in prison at Her Majesty's or His Majesty's expense for the next sort of 2 years.
Yeah, and then,
just unbelievable.
Well, and another point to raise here also is that we have the highest rates of approval ratings for asylum applications under the Home Office. The Home Office is the 5th column in this country.
And of course, according to the Human Rights Brigade, the reason for that is that they all deserve to be here because they all qualify.
But this is my point: the people who are coming here are people who have failed to get into Sweden, to get into France, to get into Germany. So these people have applied for asylum in Germany or in France or in Sweden. They've been rejected. And so they come here knowing that we are an easier sell.
Yes.
So why are we taking the rejects from the EU?
And
this
why
is
do
what,
we,
people need to
also,
understand how serious this is.
And also, why do we not know if they've got criminal convictions whether they have them. That's the bit that really, I think, will puzzle people and will really worry people, because what it means is that you've got a large number of these people coming into the country who have already been found guilty of crimes in other countries in Europe.
As I said many times on this show, we need to have old cruise ships in the channel.
Yeah.
If we can't turn the boats back, all of these people should be put straight onto the cruise ship.
Yeah.
When the cruise ship is filled up, they're sailed off to one of the British overseas territory, like the South Georgia Iceland process. The message is, you cross the channel, you will never set foot on blighty shores.
And if you can't prove, like, if you're going to America, you know, if you can't prove that you're not going to commit crimes, or you're not going to stay over your visa, or you're not going to, you know, hang around and work, if you can't do that, they won't let you in. We still have the same process here. If you can't prove that you haven't got a criminal record, then we're not interested in letting you in.
And call me old-fashioned, how's this for a policy? If you arrive here with a machine gun tattooed on your face, you're not going to be allowed in.
That might be a bit of a hazard for you. The other one this morning, which is absolutely even more ridiculous than any of the stories we've done about migrants, a male migrant used a female friend's identity to treat A&E patients at an NHS hospital, bizarrely, where Lucy Letby worked. This is a guy from Nigeria who has got his wife with him outside of court. He's called Lucius Njoku, 33 years of age, fraudulently used the name of agency nurse Joyce George to work as a healthcare assistant at the Countess of Chester Hospital. And he had a badge with a female's face on it, and nobody questioned it.
You can't make this stuff up. And for people at home or listening on the radio, this chap has a beard.
Yeah.
He's not some androgynous sort of
really isn't, no.
LGBT type. He's, you know, he looks like a man. He's going around with a picture of a woman called Joyce.
Yeah.
And nobody in the NHS thought, well, you're a new person. I haven't seen you before, firstly. Who are you? It took a patient to get suspicious. And it was a patient who actually, after weeks of this person washing and dressing patients, he confronted him and he said, my name is Joyce, but I'm the man.
Right.
Well, why is the patient noticing this and nobody on the staff?
I mean, absolutely incredible stuff, right? And the woman whose identity he would have adopted, if you like, was also from Nigeria. She got a job at the hospital through an agency, but she let him, Njoku, do her shifts using her ID. So there's clearly some jiggery-pokery going on here. She's come into the country. He's also come into the country legally because he came with his wife, who's an NHS worker, and so he came as her dependent, right? So I've told this story before that somebody on Immigration Watch told me. He said he got a call once from an immigration worker down at Heathrow. 3 women came into Heathrow with NHS visas to say, we're coming to work in the NHS. Each one of them had a husband and 5 children. Yeah. So 21 people came in for 3 jobs. And people wonder why our health system is broken.
Yeah, no, dependence is actually the biggest issue we've had. I mean, the government has cut back a lot on dependence, but look, the thing
but not on job visas.
Not on job visas.
Only on student
well,
visas.
you get Nigerian poets. There's a big demand for Nigerian poets in this country.
I like a Nigerian poet.
We have a huge shortage of those too. Yeah. But you know, this other person has fled the country. The person who gave the false ID. But again, it's still not known whether he will be deported. Why is it not known?
And he hasn't been jailed, by the way.
No,
he's not a suspended sentence he gets.
I'm sorry, you know, this is where we're wrong. If you're convicted, you should be kicked out of the country.
The whole thing is a complete farrago of nonsense, isn't it? It's completely mad. Let's talk about Rachel Reeves, just to lighten the mood, because she's been talking to Channel 4 about how apparently people underestimate her. Check this out.
I've always felt I've got something to prove, and that's...
Have you proved it?
Well, I'm still doing that. I've always felt that people have underestimated me. They did when I was at school. They did when I played in those chess tournaments as a girl, particularly a girl that went to the local state school. I don't want everyone to be the same. I don't want everyone to be like me, and I'm sure most people wouldn't want to be anything like me. But everyone should have opportunities, and everybody should have that chance to do what they want and to fulfil their dreams and ambitions. And I'm going to keep going and keep fighting and prove to people that a woman from an ordinary background and a woman can do this job and can do it really, really well.
Yeah. How's that going, do you think?
Right. Well, she's correct. We all have underestimated her. Yeah. Underestimated her incompetence and her ability to destroy the economy. We had no idea.
No.
So we apologise for underestimating
I love the fact that she was underestimated in chess tournaments. Like, for example, when she came 26th in the tournament of Lewisham. How much more could you underestimate somebody who comes 26th?
I actually think she needs to see a therapist because she seems to be obsessed by these chess tournaments. I don't know what happened.
But she's also, I mean, how many people do you know of her age, and I assume she's 40-something, who still talks about school?
Well, that's what I mean.
I was underestimated at school.
This is
You're
what I mean.
40 odd now, for God's sake, woman. Get a grip.
But we're so bored now of these sort of DEI things. She has to mention she went to state school, comprehensive. Yeah. She's a woman.
She's a woman.
We've moved on beyond all of that, and she still can't get her mind out of this silly truff.
Yes, indeed. Well, here she is, because she looks a bit sort of unhappy there. So let's have a look at what she was like in happier times.
I've been hearing about you in the news that you like taxes. If you had 3 wishes, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. To answer your questions well, to make sure that all children have a good start in life, and for my own children to give me less chat back. I don't think that third one's going to come true.
If you could have another job, what would that be?
Oh, well, what I'd really like to be is Beyonce, but I don't think I'm ever going to be Beyonce. So before I became an MP, I worked in finance. I worked in banks and financial institutions. So I guess that's what I would go back to doing. But at the moment, I'm doing the job that I want more than any other job. I'm in charge of the country's finances. All right? Yeah, you happy with my answers? I get a high five. Hey, very good.
Dear God. I'd like to be Beyonce.
Well, I've never seen her so happy before.
No.
I think she's missed a calling. I think she should be a teacher's assistant.
Yeah.
I think this is actually
Teacher's
where
assistant.
she should
Yeah.
reading nursery rhymes. I think this is actually where she should be.
I mean, horrifyingly at the end there, when she says, actually, I'm in charge of the nation's finance, you just go, oh, God, really, are you? You know, November the 26th, she's going to ruin the country completely. She's going to write everybody into sort of, you know, the debtor's court. Finally, here she says she won't be coming back for more tax.
This is a once-in-a-parliament budget. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. But we don't need to come back for more. We're not going to have to come back and ever do a budget like this again. So never again will I have to do a budget like I did in October. There is no need to come back with another budget like this. We'll never need to do that again.
5 minutes later. There are tax rises coming down the track.
Yeah, but
Yeah. There will be more taxes, so that was all complete and utter cobblers, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Rachel from Customer Complaints we were told was going to masterly steer us through these economic storms.
Yes.
And quite clearly it goes to show you just how ill-suited she is for the job. Any, you know, Chancellor should know you don't make such clear promises when you have no idea what's going to come down the pipeline.
It is absolutely ridiculous. Incredible. That's Rachel Reeves for you. Coming up, we're going to talk about the police, because you won't believe what you're about to see. A police investigation into a man who is questioned after being arrested because he's wearing a Star of David necklace. Yes, right. Because he's a Jewish man, he was hauled in before the Beak, the Metropolitan Police at the weekend, because in fact they didn't like what he was doing. Because he was wearing a Star of David, he was apparently antagonising a load of scumbag pro-Palestinian supporters. That's coming next. To be celebrated. Oh, hold on. We've also received 64 immigrants back in. Genius. Yeah, well, that's the problem, isn't it? You know, they call it 1 in, 1 out. It really isn't. It's a lot worse than that, because it's like literally none out and thousands and thousands, 30-odd thousand in. Ridiculous. Let's get a voice note from Sue on Ed Miliband.
Morning, Mike. Sue from Farncombe here. Ed Miliband. I did notice he popped in yet again. Well, what we inherited. How many months have they been in now? Is it 15? I can't remember. It seems like a lifetime. Absolutely disgusting.
Absolutely disgusting is right, and all they do is keep going on about how much money they're going to rinse us for. You know, they talk about, you know, putting, you know, investment into green energy. It's not investment, it's our money they're putting into it. It's ridiculous. Rafe, just before we move on to the state of affairs when it comes to the Metropolitan Police, let's talk about that big raid at the weekend. The Louvre shut down yesterday after a load of jewels were stolen, millions of dollars, pounds worth, apparently including Napoleon's priceless gems.
Yes, as a royal historian, this is a shocking story because France doesn't have many crown jewels left. Many of them they got rid of after the French Revolution.
Right.
What few things do remain are in the Apollo Gallery in the Louvre. And outrageously, there was this amazing caper where just by using a cherry picker and an angle grinder, in broad daylight, the museum was actually open. This didn't happen at night time. There were actually people watching and filming this.
Right.
They went in, threatened the security guards, and basically went away with these priceless tiaras, necklaces belonging to Napoleon's wife, various queens, even the crown of Empress Eugenie, which they dropped, thankfully, and it's been damaged because it fell from the first floor, we think, but that's been retrieved. That's worth tens of millions of pounds.
Wow.
But, you know, it's the historical and cultural importance of these artefacts. But this is right out of the Pink Panther. You expect, you know, a glove with a peanut, Sir Charles Lytton's glove to be there. But I think, actually, Inspector Clouseau must have been in charge of the security well.
There's pictures in the Daily Mail today, pages 4 and 5, of the cherry picker, as you say, just parked outside the front door, practically, where it says Musée du Louvre. Galerie des Antiques, and there it is up to the balcony, where they just walked up a ladder apparently and smashed a couple of bits of glass. Amazing.
And you know, France is actually the world hotspot for these sorts of heists now. They have the Natural History Museum and so forth because they have such lax security. I mean, this is the equivalent of people breaking into the Tower of London and going away with some of the crown jewels. Now,
exactly.
that's impossible. The crown, you know, the Tower of London is so well fortified. You've got the beefeaters there, the yeoman warders, but also the best high-tech security, big safe doors, and yet, you know, you can just see here how many windows there are to go into, and I think this is going to be hugely embarrassing for the Louvre, the world's most visited museum, but also for Macron, who of course has enough on his plate already, but this has become a national humiliation for France, that their most prized royal possessions had been so easily done away with within the space of a few minutes.
And it reminds me of a show that I watched on Netflix called Lupin, who is actually a fictional character, but it's a sort of modern day version of the Pink Panther and a modern day version of a sort of Victorian thief. But also, you always want to ask the question, I mean, who could they sell this stuff to? Because surely, unless you've got some mad kind of, you know, Saudi Arabian multi-billionaire collector who just wants to put it in his house, you can't really sell it on the open market, can you?
Well, so usually what happens here is either it's stolen to order, so some crazed billionaire has decided he wants his items, or tragically they'll be cut up and sold and melted down, the diamonds will be cut up, a huge act of vandalism against a piece of world heritage. But there's even talk that the Russians were behind this, and this is all part of their plan to destabilise Europe in various ways. We know that they're flooding the countries of Europe with migrants, but they're also doing other stuff to try to foment discord in the country.
I suppose if Putin wanted to do a big sort of, you know, 2 fingers up to the west, he could go, we've got the French jewels now, and we'll put them in on show
wear one of the crowns
in St. Petersburg.
Yeah,
exactly right. That could happen. Now, have a look at this. This is an interview that came out over the weekend. It actually is from a few weeks ago. Daily Telegraph got their hands on it, and it's the police interviewing a man who they arrested at a pro-Palestinian march for apparently antagonising the pro-Palestinian protesters. Check it out.
I mean, I'm concerned about this question about the Star of David.
Why are you concerned?
Well, I think I'll have a private consultation and we'll set out my concerns.
Okay. The officers have noted in their statements that they believed that because the Star of David was out and present to people which may take either offence to the presence of it, they felt that that was antagonising the situation further.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that I think that's, with respect, appalling and shows a complete lack of ignorance on behalf of those officers.
Okay.
I mean, incredibly, he was arrested for antagonising people who were holding up banners calling for death to the IDF and death to Israelis and death to Israel from the river to the sea. They didn't arrest them, they arrested this guy who said he was watching, he was being an observer basically at a pro-Palestinian demo outside the Israeli embassy. He's wearing a Star of David necklace, and they say that that's antagonising.
Yeah. Well, there's just further evidence of how policing works now. It's not about what is the right thing to do, it's about what will I do that won't antagonise the biggest mob.
Yeah.
Which side has the ability to bring out more people onto the streets, and I'm not going to antagonise those people. That's what's running all of this. Also remember, with critical race theory, the sorts of nonsense about white supremacy that the College of Policing and others teach these policemen, they're told that being Jewish is just adjacent to being a white supremacist now. That's the mentality. So when they see the Star Star of David, they see it as equivalent, essentially, I would imagine, to some sort of a racist symbol.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we've just had...
Like a swastika or something.
We've just had, in the last few weeks, a wonderful court ruling whereby the person who was charged and convicted for burning a Quran had his conviction overturned by the Court of Appeal, who said nobody has the right not to be offended.
Oh.
An important pillar of free speech is the ability to cause offence to other people. So even if it was offensive, which is not,
right.
but even if it was, the police should have taken a lesson from that court ruling and allowed him to go on. This is utterly disgraceful. I hope the chief rabbi is involved. Keir Starmer was very quick to comment on the Maccabi Tel Aviv
Although he's done
team.
nothing about it.
Nothing about it, but I hope at least... Well, he's good at talking, so I hope he talks about this as well.
Yeah, let's see. Meanwhile, finally, we'll just end up with this, because this is hilarious. Apparently 7 million people at the weekend joined a US protest against Trump being king of America. They're obsessed with Trump, and they think that he wants to try and, you know, do away with elections. They think that he wants to do away with any kind of democratic process, and he just wants to declare himself to be king. They actually believe it. Have a look at this particular... I think we haven't quite got it yet, no. We have got it, I think, now. Have a look.
No king, ain't no king in the USA. We're rising up, he ain't down, he ain't no fool. No matter what he says, he said he's mad. No, we won't say not today. Not today. 'Cause there ain't no king in the USA.
Tragically, they actually practiced that. Right? They actually practiced doing that because they thought it would be good.
But it's the
usual... Seriously.
It's the usual suspects. I think they wake up every morning on their calendar.
Yeah.
Which protest am I going to today?
It is.
Is it Trump? Is it Palestine?
Yeah, they're all white, of course.
Is it trans?
Right. They're all white
what
because, you know, interestingly enough, Hispanics in America actually quite like Donald Trump because they don't want to have any more, you know, scumbags coming in from Central America and South America because they've come there legally. Black people in America quite like Donald Trump because he actually works for the working people of the country. You know, it's these kind of middle-class idiots, white idiots who think, oh, he's going to be king, he's a nightmare, it's danger.
As I said, the usual suspects. This is the just of all brigade.
It is.
And whatever you think about Trump, he did an epic trolling where they put out a video on his account of him with a crown flying a jet fighter with the words King Trump on the jet fighter, which then unleashed sludge onto all of these people. So, unprecedented times we're living through.
They really are ridiculous, aren't they? Anyway, listen, Rafe, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Rafe Harderman-Koo will be back soon.